All right, Locker Room Philosophers fans, we are here today with my co-host, of course, Mike D, and Tyler Bettelon from the Alex Saints Foundation. Alex, thanks for joining us today. Or Tyler, thanks for joining us. I screwed it
You're
up already.
welcome.
What's up,
No,
Tyler?
yeah,
All
no,
right.
that happens all the time. Don't worry about it.
All right. So, Tyler, where did you grow up and what did you do for fun?
So I grew up in Troy, Michigan. Went to Athens High School when I was younger. Just played sports. Enjoyed going up north with my dad. Go ride four wheelers, snowmobile, things of those natures. Like being outside. Just being active, really, as a child was kind of as we all were. Really, is just wanted to be out and just living life and um, yeah, sports, outdoors, video games, hanging out with friends. Just all the typical young kid things we do.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty typical stuff. Did you from growing up, did you ever like where did your heart of service kind of come from? Did you, work at soup kitchens or anything as a kid or anything like that?
It's a great question. I just kind of have always been wired this way, and it probably has a ton to do with my parents and how they raised me. And it was always a matter of when I was growing up, like my parents letting us know that, how good we did have it growing up in Troy versus, all these other different situations throughout the world and throughout the United States, throughout Michigan, just and throughout Troy, honestly, and yourself, it's a very diverse city and growing up in those schools, you see a lot of different diversity and a lot of different upbringings and things like that. So I think it was instilled with me pretty hard as a child to just, treat others how you want to be treated was one of the biggest things that my dad has always said and continues to say to this day, and something that I kind of carried with me. Um, is really, yeah, like I said, treat others how you want to be treated, and that can go a really long way. Um, I grew up wanting to be a cop. That was my whole goal throughout life was, to be a cop and then eventually, go to federal law enforcement. Counterterrorism was one of my biggest passions that I wanted to kind of pursue and whatnot. So when I graduated from Athens in 2013, I did community college for a couple of years, and then I went to Michigan State for a few years and got my degree in criminal justice. So after that, I worked for the Oakland County Sheriff's Office for a few years out of school, and I just always have had that heart of wanting to help others and be there in need for when people need the help. So yeah, it's natural, I guess. I don't really know.
And what was your role over there? You weren't sworn, right? You was a civilian
No,
position.
I was working for Sheriff Bouchard, so a lot of the things that I did was involved with like community policing. So,
Hmm.
over the years, obviously relationships between law enforcement and like, the citizens and civilians and whatnot has kind of taken a toll, and a lot of people look down on the police and things like that. So a big part of my role was being involved in the community with them and, you know, just trying to tell people, hey, they're a human. Just because they have a uniform on doesn't mean they're a robot and that they're perfect and that everything they're doing is right and blah blah blah. They're still a human. They still bleed the same color blood that you bleed, and they still have the same amount of bones under their skin that you do, and things of that nature. So just working with events in public like coffee with the cop, coffee with the sheriff, just all these type of outreach activities to just put citizens in actual conversations with law enforcement.
Hmm. For sure. And then, so what are you doing now besides what we're going to get into later with the foundation?
So now I'm in sales, nothing to do with my degree. I work for a company called Greif. They're a packaging company. So my role, they're the company that, the part of the Greif that I work with is we just make corrugated board pretty much. So our company will send in sheets of corrugated to like box plants who then will have the equipment to convert them to shape to an actual box and make like the die cuts and things of that nature. So I'm pretty heavily involved in um, some of the graphic boxes and more of like the e-commerce boxes that you're seeing, with all these social media influencers where they open up the box and it says, "You're beautiful," all that kind of stuff and things of that nature. So yeah, so now it's just sales. I handle a lot of the Midwest territory. So I'm out in Wisconsin, Chicago, Michigan, obviously, Ohio, Indiana, a ton, and just out interacting with people.
Okay. And what was it that made you make that switch?
I actually, when I was, as we were talking earlier, when I was coaching lacrosse, so I coached lacrosse at Athens High School for 5 years. And during that time, one of my players' dads approached me, and which isn't for this company that I work for now, but it was a different sales job before the one I'm in now. He approached me, he said, "Hey, we have an opening on our team, and we need a new sales guy, and I think you'd be great at it. Like you have the personality and all that to be a great sales guy. Do you have any interest?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not? Go make more money, better hours, don't get shot at, like all these things." Right. So at that time, my plan was to still go to the academy and still go be a cop. And then when I got approached with this, and it kind of just was like, "Oh, okay, let's see what this is about." And so, yeah, I got into sales and now here we are doing this. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah. So what have you learned about yourself in these new roles?
The biggest thing is the fact, I think, like I kind of spoke about it earlier, and one of the biggest things that I've carried over from law, I guess, the law enforcement world into sales is the fact that everybody's a human and wants to be treated like a human. Um, I'm not the sales guy that goes in there and says, "You need this because ours is the best. We're the best at this. We have the best quality. We'll deliver on time," all that stuff, which we will. But I'm more of the guy of, let's go make that connection with the buyer. Let's, our customers, get to know them, take them out to lunch, learn about their families. That's what people care about. It's, they want to be treated like a human. Nobody wants to be treated like a robot. And if you treat people with respect and treat others, like I said earlier, how you want to be treated, it takes you a long way in life. And that's how I found my most success, especially being someone that, I don't have a degree in business. I don't have a degree in sales. I don't know anything. I didn't go to school for that. I went to school to learn how to be a cop. And now I'm in sales. And that's the biggest thing that I teach people too that come to me for advice is just be a human, be organized and be a human, and you'll do just fine.
For sure. All right. So, transitioning a little bit into the foundation, tell us about Alex and your relationship with him, and then kind of what
Yeah,
happened
for
there.
sure. So Alex and I became best
Actually,
friends,
hold on.
and
First, let's just, because some people might not know what the foundation is, introduce the foundation, and then we'll go into Alex and that
okay,
story.
yeah. So I'll tie it all into one. So Alex's Saints Foundation was launched in June of 2020. We started Alex's Saints Foundation in honor of Alex St Pierre, who was my best friend growing up. Um, he passed away in August of 2019. It was the day before his 25th birthday. Uh, Unfortunately, passed away from an accidental drug overdose. Fentanyl is what was in there, and is eventually with the one that took him out. And so for me, kind of as I talked about earlier, is I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I just want to help, and so as we all know, the middle of 2020 happens. There's a pandemic. We all get locked in our houses, and I got bored. I'm someone that's got to move around and do things. I can't sit still, so I got bored, and I said, "Hey, let's start a charity. Why not? That's what everybody does when they're bored." And so we started, like I said, Alex's Saints Foundation. And our goal now is to just offer rehab scholarships to young adults that are Michigan residents that are struggling with a substance use disorder and are humble enough and vulnerable enough to admit that they're struggling and they need help. And you know, when they approach the rehab centers that we partner with, and they say, like I said, "I need help, I'm struggling, but my deductible is $2,500 and I can't afford that. I don't have insurance. What is the cost of rehab? Oh, it's $12,000 a month. It's all of these things that are just the biggest hurdles, financially can be that hurdle of stopping someone that's ready for help to get the help they need. And that's where we'll step in.
Okay.
I'm not sure if
And
I talked a lot about everything you asked there, but
Yes,
no,
I
you're
also see since so I don't know if these are like current or if it's updated on your website, but since 2020, you show that the treatment costs that you guys supported so far since 2020 has been $127,707 in
mm-hmm,
treatment costs, which go towards detox support, residential, outpatient care, transportation, and then additional services there, and then also the treatment resources supplied are listed at $33,250, and that's it looks like more of those are grants to the local rehabilitation centers or the
mm-hmm.
facilities that you guys work with that help for the patient care, and 40 scholarships granted since 2020. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's because there is a lot. There's so much cost associated. I mean, the process of, like you said, of the person getting to the point where they actually reach out for the support, for the help. That's a long journey and a thing of itself. But like then offering like the financial support and the resources as well. That's huge because more people need that. I think there's so many crazy issues with addiction now. There have been. It's only getting worse. I feel like it's getting worse and not better. It just seems like there's before. It could be heroin was the thing before. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
not that heroin, but then it's like heroin is still an issue. But then there's also now fentanyl is the main one,
Yeah.
right? As far as that.
Fentanyl is definitely the biggest one now. Yeah, there was the rise of heroin before that came about. Now it's fentanyl, and it's in everything. You can't, the thought of thinking, oh, I can take this hit of cocaine one time, it'll be fine. It's just one hit. It's not, that's a lie, unless you truly know where that's cut from and where it's coming from. There's a high risk that that's going to be laced. And that, to think, oh, one time I'll be fine. It's not true at all. To think, oh, I can go, out to this party and do it. It's not, nothing's going to happen. I can promise you and I can guarantee you, Alex didn't think anything was going to happen to him.
Yeah,
And
majority of it that I hear is always basically something else that it was laced with the fentanyl, so it wasn't
mm-hmm,
an intentional type of thing or just fentanyl, straight fentanyl itself. It was always
right.
something else that had it in there that unfortunately
Yeah. And,
did.
they're putting fentanyl in there because it's such an addictive drug that they hope that they can get you hooked on it even more. And then it's like, sometimes you think from a drug dealer perspective, not that I am one, but like, why are you wanting to kill your clientele? Is my question.
well,
Now that I'm
the
in
big thing.
sales is I don't, I'm not killing my customers.
Well, the big thing too is it's cheaper and it's synthetic, so they can just make
Right.
it like it's. I mean, you're in sales; it's all about the margin, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if they're cutting their margin by a significant amount, then they're making more money. They're not they're not altruistic. I've never met a drug dealer that's altruistic. They don't necessarily care. They're just trying to make that money. So it's yeah, it's definitely interesting. Do you guys for how you address it? Are you guys kind of dealing with it at the at the rehab level and also doing some kind of like prevention and education to get people to not start doing drugs in the first place, or are you kind of more the end user? Is that kind of more what you
Yeah,
deal with?
definitely. I would say that's, the three things that we really focus on is one being rehab scholarships, meaning getting people into rehab that are willing, as we talked about earlier, that are ready for help and get into the treatment. The second thing we'll do is pay for funerals if there's a young adult that ends up passing away from a drug overdose. Mom and dad aren't saving for that funeral. They don't have a bank account. They got a bank account for your child for your college savings maybe, but they don't have a bank account for your funeral. And to me, I just couldn't imagine, I'm not a parent, but I couldn't imagine having a kid and my kid passing away and then just not having the money or the resources to be able to have a proper burial or a proper goodbye to my child. Like that just doesn't sit right with me. Um, that you as a parent didn't make that choice. Your son or daughter made that choice, so that's not a burden on you. You know that's where we'll step in if we have to. We don't want to, trust me. We don't want to help with
Yeah.
funerals. We don't ever want to do a funeral. And then thirdly is being about raising awareness. That's one of the biggest things is um, there are so many people that have been affected by drug use in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a family member, a friend, or something. So the awareness is there, but the fact of people actually acting on it and acknowledging it and really deeply understanding the effect that drug use has on people and their families, I think is lost at times. John St. Pierre, Alex's dad, said it best once. We were getting interviewed by Channel 7 one day, and he just said it tears apart families. You don't think it will, but it absolutely tears apart families. So just raising awareness, one of the biggest things that I think was huge for us was, financially, obviously, was Athens Charity Week. As Mike, I think they did it maybe back when you were in high school too at Athens. There was a whole student council where they would do 1 week and they choose one charity and they raise money for that charity. And we were lucky enough. And Mike, I know when I was in school in 2010 to 2013, our goals were like $20,000 to raise in a week. And we thought that was insane. And then all of a sudden, we get selected and they raised $118,000 in 1 week for us,
That's
which
amazing.
was insane. Nothing we could
Wow.
ever do that, ever raise $118,000 in a week. And this is all run by kids. This is all run by the student council at Athens and all the students. And, tying that back to the raising awareness, to be able to go back to the high school that I went to and that Alex went to, my biggest thing was I walked these hallways. Alex walked these hallways. If that's not, a good enough wake up call for you to know that somebody that was in your shoes before, is no longer with us because of their choice of, doing drugs and all that stuff. It's, I don't know how to paint a more clear picture for people. So it can be insensitive at times. It can be a harsh reality, but it's the truth. And, I'm not going to back away from the truth at all. So if it saves a life, that's good enough for me.
For
Absolutely.
sure.
And I think unfortunately sometimes it does take an event, like in the
Mm-hmm.
school itself, somebody to pass away and an unfortunate thing like that to happen to that extreme for a lot of, especially a kid at that age, to reflect and really kind of think about, okay, even if it's not me that has an addiction problem, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows somebody, especially at that age, that is doing something. And even if it, even marijuana, even the weed
Mm-hmm.
is getting, I've heard things of that being, laced or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's like, so you could even think like, well, I don't do the quote unquote hard stuff or whatnot, so I'm doing this, but you never know. It just brings awareness to something, an event like that will really kind of bring people together to where they could really, make some
Right.
kind of change.
And
Yeah.
just to see, a bunch of kids that have no idea who Alex was or
Mm.
didn't really know, obviously I was coaching at the time too, but so some of them knew who I was, but for these kids to all come together as one group, behind Alex, they had Alex's name all over the school and things like that. I mean, it was just truly remarkable. It was humbling. I mean, it's just, and it's inspiring, right? That these kids, because they select the charity, right? I went and did a whole presentation with a few other charities right in front of them. So like there were other charities that they could have selected and they chose us. And for, these kids to choose, a topic that isn't necessarily widely talked about a ton, and to raise that awareness amongst themselves in the city of Troy, and as far out as their research, or not their research, but their outreach goes, is to be commended for sure.
Well, and too, I mean, I'm not from Troy like either of you guys, but I have lived here for a couple of years now, and I went to Saline, which is pretty similar, it seems like. But at least how it was when I was in school at Saline, it was like the overdoses and stuff, they happen in other places. Like that's not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen here. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that, you know, for kids from a place like Troy or Saline or anything like that, you know, having that hit close to home of like legitimately, like geographically close to home,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, this can happen to anybody. Like there's fentanyl here. Like, you know,
Hmm.
I think that that is a lot more powerful than just raising money for somebody in, let's say, Warren
Right.
or whatever, where overdoses I know
Right.
are more
To
common.
have
So
that actual personal, relationship to the story was, I think, a huge benefit for them as well. And just to be able to relate in a way, as much as they can.
have you had any feedback from the students or, you know, anybody, maybe recent graduates of Athens or something like that, just feedback from them about like, hey, this, you know, this awareness like made me quit drugs or anything like that? Any
There,
stories?
there's, I wouldn't say amongst the kids, no, but definitely we had kids that would come up to, and I've never met them. I have no idea who they are. They came up to, us and they're like, hey, my dad was an addict. My brother passed away from an overdose. Like there were so many people, like we talked about earlier, that'll come up to you in private and let you know that they have been affected by this, but it's not something you're going around and telling
Yeah.
people, right? It's not something you're going around and saying, my brother had cancer and he beat it. That's not something you're going around and you're celebrating. That is something you're going around and you're celebrating and you're talking to your friends about. It's not, telling someone my dad is really struggling with drugs right now. My brother is in rehab, things of that nature. Those kids aren't talking about it. And so for some of them to actually be confident and be humble and vulnerable to come and tell me, someone they've never met, right? Or Hannah, like our vice chairman, just to tell them and just let us know that they're relating as well is it's huge. And we
Hmm.
talk about it before too. It's everybody knows someone. I know when we had a gala, I think Carlos, you were at one of our galas. We asked, besides Alex, if you know someone that has been affected uh, by drug use, friends or family, raise your hand. Everyone in the room raised their hand. We had 150 plus people there. Everybody in the room raised their hand. And I asked, besides Alex, right? So everybody on top of Alex that they're all there for knows someone else. So it's massive.
Yeah, it's huge for sure. How has the foundation changed from your original idea of what it was going to be to now?
Oh, great question. So I think the idea of the foundation hasn't really changed. It would be more so of kind of how we operate. We found ourselves to be highly more successful to really partner with these local facilities that are doing the actual work, that are actually doing the treatment on these people. Um, because it's not every treatment facility out there is going to be a good one. I think everybody knows that. So for us, it's very important to know that the money, that people donate to us is actually going somewhere that, we have vetted, that we have trust in. We're all volunteer. So our board is 100% volunteer. No one's ever taken a dime for their time with Alex St Foundation. And so for that, right, we put all of our money back into the community. And um, like I said, the biggest thing is just building that trust, and kind of the process of how we work is so that people at the rehab centers that are working hands on can really tell this person is determined. This person, is really ready. Another thing that we've learned is a lot of times we'll get moms of kids that'll come to us and saying, I'm filling out this application on behalf of my kid. Well, why is your kid not filling it out? You know, why are you? Understandably, it's your child. You want your child to get help, but at the same time, why isn't your child the one taking the action to get this help? That says a lot to us. Is obviously the mom and the dad are going to want their kid to get better. It's just a natural parent reaction. So I think learning to really hear it from that individual that has the substance use problem, and that person that actually reaches out to us and actually talks to us, goes a long way. Instead of just dealing with the parent, I want to hear it from you. Like, tell me that you need help. Like we said earlier, it's hard. It's just, I haven't been through it, right? I don't know, but I know from experience by working with these people that it's hard, and I know from experience with Alex, it's hard to quit. And so that's kind of the biggest thing, is to just really put our trust into our partners and really learn that that person who's applying for money is the one that's actually applying. It's not mom or dad. It's not aunt or uncle or brother or sister. It's hey, I need help, and I'm the one that's admitting it that I need help.
For sure. And how do you vet the treatment facilities?
We have obviously, from building relationships over times, with people that we have learned to trust in rehab centers, they obviously have good to recommend other people. I think a lot of times too, it goes on just kind of the services they offer. Like a lot of the things we really look for too is the mental health side of things. A lot of these, I think like addiction is obviously another mental health issue as well. It's not just an addiction issue, it's also a mental health issue. So treatment facilities that also have a priority on the mental health and have therapists on staff and have psychiatrists on staff, it says a lot about them. And it's just learning about the services that they offer. And there's certain rehabs that are going to go an extra step for people. For instance, I just got off a call with a place that we were potentially going to start working with, and we helped an individual there, and he's telling me how he helped him he was 20 years old. Helped him get his social security card, helped him get a job, helped him learn how to balance a checkbook, like all of these things where they have a peer recovery coach, which a lot of places do. Are these recovery places putting in the extra work for these people, or are they just trying to fill their beds? Are they just trying to, pay their bills and things like that? And that's kind of where we come in, and we have that initial meeting with them, and we'll go out and we'll visit the facility and actually talk to them in person and, tour it and just be hands-on with them. I mean, that's the best way you can learn.
For sure. And do you have different program lengths that you send people to, or is it all like a month or something like that?
It all just depends on the certain individual, right? Some people will come to us and they'll say, hey, I need residential treatment. I'm going to be in residential treatment for 30 to 60 days. Or there's IOP, which is intensive outpatient, right? Where they're not necessarily staying overnight at the rehab center. They go home to their house at the end of the day, and then, have the therapy during the day. So it really depends on like a case by case scenario of what is this individual, what treatment are they going for, really.
Okay. And what is the typical age range of the people you're putting through these programs?
We typically cap around 35-ish is kind of our age. I would say, we've helped individuals as low as 14 years old before. And it's just, it makes me sick even talking about it, but it's, 14 years old is as young as we've seen. And then we get, people that are older, that are in their 50s or 60s, and it's hard, right? I want to help everybody, but, we try to stick to our core mission and stick close to Alex's story, right? Which is why we focus on the younger adults and why we focus more so on narcotics than we do more so on alcohol, things of that nature. So, Carlos, I kind of completely forgot the question you asked, but I hope I answered it.
Yeah, it was just the age range that you're usually dealing
so
with.
Typically it's like, I would say an average of close to our age, like 28ish is kind of, I would say, the average.
Close to the age of you and I, not Mike.
Yeah, you're right. Yes. Mike, I was trying to make you fit in a little bit there, Mike.
It's all
good. And then are you seeing, you guys have been doing this for this will be your fourth year in 2024, right? So
Hmm.
are you seeing any trends in terms of the age dropping or increasing of people seeking treatment, or is it kind of staying pretty steady?
Yeah, for us, I would say it's staying pretty steady. I think statistically, though, if you look at like the data from like the CDC or any of like those agencies that are reporting on this stuff, I think the age is declining and the overdoses are increasing.
Hmm. For
Looks like
sure.
someone's.
Yeah, that's definitely been
Besides,
my experience. Are you guys? This isn't really in your scope, I don't think. But are you guys doing anything with Narcan and like passing that out, anything like that?
not yet. It's something that I've looked into. I definitely would love, like, for instance, I wanted to pass it out at like an event, like we have our golf outing every year. And I think it'd be great to give everybody Narcan at that, in their goodie bag or when they sign up for the event and whatnot. But at the same time, too, it's also about learning how to actually properly use it and understand it
It's
and
pretty
all that.
simple.
It is
It's
pretty simple, but it's
yeah,
but it's just a matter of I got to find the resources to get it, and B, I would love to have somebody, like for example at our golf outing, like set somebody up on a hole that passes out the Narcan and just does a quick 2 minute, like, hey, this is how you do it. Um, just again, more like we talked about earlier, raising awareness. The more I can do to actually better suit people to be able to react if it ever happens, then I'm doing my job right.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, these days you can get Narcan pretty much wherever.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I think I got some Narcan sitting right behind me right now, so it's I've definitely got it. It's just a
yeah,
matter of getting
I'll,
it out
I'll
there.
I'll offer. I've Narcaned people, so I'll offer myself to help out with that with the
So beautiful.
training people how to squirt it in somebody's nose. It's
Yeah.
pretty simple. um, but but there was so how many people are involved in ASF right now?
Right now we have 12 board members, and we're actually in the process of bringing on some more volunteers. Jenny Taylor being one of them, to help us kind of help plan events. It's getting a little crazy for me to do it all the time, so I'm looking to bring on some help. And there's just been people that have been wanting to get involved, and maybe don't necessarily want to take on the responsibility of a board member and all that comes with that. So we're going to have them start kind of helping us plan events. And just when people, I think one of the biggest things that I've had to learn and to teach myself is to stop being such a control freak and to learn how to delegate and to actually, to understand that people do want to help. And um, as someone who admittedly is probably a control freak, it's tough at times, when you build something and you want it to go a certain way and to just kind of let that go. It's hard for me. It's hard, right? It's something I got to work on, something I got to learn too, for sure. But um, so that's one thing I've learned is to when people offer you help, like, hey, take it. Like they want to help, and it's great to see all these people. So yeah, we've got 12 board members. A majority, we started with 10. A majority of them have been with us since the beginning. As we grew, we brought on more people to help us kind of grow on the west side as well. Because when we first started, we were only focused on Oakland and Macomb counties. And then once we grew and became more relevant and people kind of heard about us and, we're bringing in more funds, we opened it up to just say, hey, if you're a Michigan resident, then you qualify.
Okay. And that's a smooth segue into what I was going to ask you is what you've learned about yourself in these 4 years of having this organization.
Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, I don't even think I could have ever imagined we'd be where we are right now. Like when I first had this idea, I remember going to Brett Schmitz, my treasurer, and being like, "Hey, man, I need you to help manage this money." And we thought, "Oh, it's not going to be that much. Like, we're not going to have a ton of transactions and whatnot, and all this stuff." So I would say that just learning on how fast it kind of grew and just learning how to run a business of sorts. Even though it's a nonprofit, it's still really a business, right? We still got to file taxes. We still got to do all, you got to have your bylaws. You got to have all the documentation filled out with the government, all of this stuff, and making sure that, everybody's donations are getting the tax deductible response, and just a lot of it's just a ton of administrative stuff. But like I said earlier, something that I've learned the most and that I'm probably still learning is how to delegate, and um, how to allow more people to get involved and not to be such a control freak, which I'm still learning. And secondly, I've learned even more, I would say, on how to, as I said at the beginning, of how to be a human. Um, you know, and then Carlos, I know you get this. I mean, when you're dealing with people at their worst, it's tough. People are sometimes they're at their top, at the very bottom of their pit per se. And just learning how to communicate is some of the biggest things, I think, of, you're communicating with, like I said earlier, a mom whose child is, struggling so hard, and all this mom wants is their kid to be better, right? And the mom is in tears on the phone with you and just crying, right? And so learning how to comfort them, but to also keep the professionalism at the same time, and at the same time, what if we weren't able to help that mom at the same time? What if we didn't have the funds and things like that? So communication's been huge on learning how to communicate with so many different diverse people. And that goes with sales too, right? Just it kind of goes hand in hand with those two things, is learning more about and truly understanding that humans are humans and we're not robots. We want to be treated with respect. We want treat like, you treat others, is my biggest thing. So that's probably the biggest thing. And yeah, I would just, there's been a ton of learning how, to kind of, how do I word this, is, a lot of times people that come to us are apply, they have a rough past, and they'll admit it, like, hey, I've been in legal trouble, I did this, I've kicked my family out of my house, I've just, and I don't want to use the term turning a blind eye to that, but in a sense of, we kind of do, in a way of, the less I know about your story, and sometimes the better, because again, like we said earlier, it is so powerful for somebody to admit that they need help. Like, and especially I think as men, that's probably a man's biggest struggle, is when they're weak and they admit that they need help. And so for me, that is just huge. And, learning, like I said earlier, to remain professional, but to also want to help these people, and learning how to, unfortunately, say no at times and things like that. So it's I've definitely learned a ton.
For sure. And with the communication piece, do you communicate with people when they're going through the programs?
As much as we can. Typically, it'll kind of be more so through their peer recovery coach. Like a lot of times, a lot of the stuff we help on is residential treatment, and typically at residential treatment, they'll take your phone away from you, so you don't have your phone or access to the outside world and things like that. So if we can, we try to follow up as much as possible. And um, like I said earlier, the one kid we helped earlier, learning that he's getting a social security card, and he's getting a bank account, and he's getting a job, and it's incredible to hear from
It's
them. And
it's helping with their addiction, but then also giving them support to give them some kind of foundation, when they come out of the rehab.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, like, let's treat the problem, but what are we going to do once we get out? And that's another thing that we always wonder too, is, hey, what's, and it's okay if you don't have a plan right now, but do you have an idea of what are we doing after we get out? Like, let's focus on getting this treatment first, but let's also keep in the mind, like, what are we going to do after this? And a lot of the rehabs that we partner with are very good about, hey, next best is a transitional housing or a sober living home, or maybe you need to go, outpatient services, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, in my experience, a lot of people that once they get out of rehab or they're trying to straighten their life up, if they go right back into the same situation and don't have
Mhm.
a purpose, they don't have a job, then they're just
Exactly.
going to end up back in the
What's your
same
support
situation.
system like? And
Mhm.
that's a lot of times some people don't have a support system, and it's heartbreaking, man. It really is.
Have you had people that you've had to sponsor multiple times?
Yeah, we've had a few that, and we have in our bylaws where we'll help you. I believe we'll help you once a year, 2 times total. And so that's when we have people that come in and apply. It's not, I don't have someone that just comes and says, I need $500. I'm going to do that work. We ask the person on their application, how much money do you need? Like, how much are you requesting? You know, Most of the time they don't know. So that's where we kind of get involved and have those relationships with the rehab to say, hey, what is it actually? I'm not going to trust that this person just says $500, because a lot of times they say a lot less than it actually is. Like, for instance, this one earlier, the guy requested $500. I do my homework. It's $2,800, for all of the costs and things like that. So,
I thought it'd be
yeah,
the other way around.
yeah, no, it sometimes it is, but majority of the time it's hey, I need this much, but hey, actually you really need this much. And that's another part of the challenge is I don't want to I want to cover the whole cost, but at the same time, if I cover your whole cost, what responsibility am I leaving you with? You know what I mean? And so it's really just a case by case scenario, because it'll be really easy for that sense of relief to come over when someone says, hey, your 2 months of sober living have been paid for, or hey, your 30-day residential treatment is now covered. Like, that's a huge burden or a huge relief off their shoulders. And at the same time, that can also be a blessing and a curse, right? Is, oh,
They can
now
lose
I
agency for sure.
Exactly, right? So a lot of times we try to make sure that, if they can, they have some skin in the game as well. It's not just us, right? We'll help as much as we can, but at the same time, you also have to learn your responsibility during this process as well.
For sure. And what hurdles do you see besides the financial? What hurdles do you see for people seeking help? Like, when I think of that, I'm thinking of the people I've encountered where maybe they briefly want to get help and they're going to go reach out in their moment of need, but they've got somebody in their family dragging them down because their family's all addicted and stuff.
Hmm.
What hurdles do you see in terms of that? Do you interview anyone that they live with, or is it just the person?
Yes, we'll ask for a reference. So typically, right, we'll ask for, like, their parents, or, if it's a roommate or a brother or whatever it is. And we'll talk with them because they can obviously give us a little more information as well that maybe they're hiding from. Um, so that would be some of the biggest hurdles there, is just getting the truth out, I guess, a lot of times. But can you repeat the question too? Sorry.
So just hurdles for people seeking help.
Yeah, like you said, too, family can be a huge hurdle, uh, or a girlfriend. And that's some of the biggest things. Girlfriend, boyfriend, right? Is, we've had a few where the couple comes to us and they want to go to the same place. And everyone I talk to in the industry, right, is, we don't take couples. We will not take couples in the same building. It's just not healthy. It's not good. Right. So that's a hurdle, is to get these people to understand. I understand that you are most comfortable with your girlfriend or boyfriend, right? And that's what makes you feel comfortable and safe. But you need to understand that this is not the best option for you. You guys need to go your separate ways while you get your help and then come back. Another hurdle is the commitment, right? I won't, if somebody comes to me and says, I just want to go to detox, the chances of us approving that are pretty slim. There's way more to the recovery process than just detox, just to get those fluids or drugs, whatever it is, out of your system. That's not it. That's not going to do it. You need the therapy. You need the actual treatment. So yeah, just finding people that are fully committed. Like I said earlier, parents being the one that want their kid, and and are applying on behalf of their kid and things like that. So, that's another hurdle.
What percentage of people do you approve?
Ooh, I would say more than 50. A lot of times, if it's a disapprove, they're either A, out of our age range, or B, will just have a alcohol addiction, and that's really the only thing. And I've helped people before with just alcohol addiction. It really just kind of depends on our funds at the time and their story, right? But our core mission is people that have a relatable story to Alex. And Alex struggled with narcotics. Alex didn't struggle with alcohol. Alex struggled with cocaine was his biggest issue. He didn't struggle with drinking a pint every night or a fifth every night. So, those are typically when we disapprove, is whether they fall out of our age range or they don't necessarily meet our core mission. And I mean, we're all humans. We want to help as many people as we can, and it's tough to say no, but sometimes we got to do it.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a lot of referrals in terms of like people that have gone through the program referring their addicted friends?
Yeah, oh, definitely, for sure. So, and that's part of it circles back to the reason why I build these partnerships with the rehabs, because Jimmy's going to get this scholarship and he's going to go tell Frank, Bill, and whoever else that back there, I just got $2,500 from Alex Saint's Foundation. Go apply, go apply, go apply. So that's why we really put our trust into these partnerships that we build with the rehab centers to come and say, no, like, hey, this person isn't. They're not worthy at this. Not that they're not worthy, but they're just not putting in the correct effort. They don't have the right mindset right now. And that's our biggest help. We'll have time. I'll have people apply all the time, and I say, hey, I'll call up the rehab center. Hey, do you know Bobby applied? No, I had no idea. Oh, great. And so then that gets the ball rolling, and it's great because a lot of times the rehab centers will be like, they're honest with us, and I'm so grateful for that. Is they'll be honest with us and say, this person just doesn't ready right now. They're just not putting in the work. They're not putting in the effort. A lot of these times they have all these classes, how to budget, how to balance a checkbook, how to do your taxes, all these things that we all wanted to learn in high school that nobody taught us, right? They're actually teaching you there in these rehab centers and helping you understand the real world. And so that's very helpful at that point.
Yeah, that's a hard truth too to for people to understand and realize is every single person's addiction, like it's the way when they're ready, like what that, how that means is like, it's, I know people personally that you can go in and out of several rehab facilities several times, finally make that, finally it's, you're ready, right? And then one person,
Mm-hmm.
it might not even get to the point of getting to a rehab center. Another person, it might be once. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's never. It's just it's so hard to really gauge, like, unless you're really working with the people. So having that support, with the
Right.
rehab center to get that feedback is huge, because you don't,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you don't want to, like, especially with being so caring and giving and having a big heart too, just like you can give money to everybody, but if
Yeah.
they're not really set up to and ready, then obviously the foundation wouldn't be able to keep going either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very important relationship. So I like that you guys are, communicating with them too.
Definitely. I mean, they're the ones doing the work. I mean, we're just paying the bills, right?
Hmm.
They're the ones that are actually on the ground, hands on with these people, helping save their lives. And they'll come back to us and be like, "You saved my life." Like, no, I just paid a bill. Those, I have so much respect for the people, and they categorize it the same category as law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, military, all those, to me, they're another first responder. If you're a nurse and or a social worker, any of those, they're all under there. They're on the front lines working with these people, putting in the work and saving lives. They're the ones doing it. I'm just, we're just writing the checkbook.
What
How
can you
many
say
different
on
facilities? Oh,
what can you
go
say on
ahead, Mike.
intervention really quick? On what do you, because I know that's a big part of people like, so what you mentioned earlier too, you'd have the mom call um, on behalf of their child, but the child isn't necessarily the one who's really stepping up to get the help, or maybe they are, and the mom's just kind of facilitating that too. But what is the like? What do you think on intervention? Are you hearing that? Because there's a statistic that the CDC had too in 2022 when they listed. So in 2022, it was 51,435 reported overdose deaths, and then 64.7% had at least one potential opportunity for intervention. So it's like, I don't know, at some point, what does the intervention look like? Is there a certain way that it should be handled in the beginning, or just some sort of intervention conversation needs to be had?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I definitely am not an expert on that at all. But to me, I mean, family support is probably some of the biggest things there. And if your whole family's coming to you and saying, "Hey, we think you need help," then you probably should listen. Maybe, in my opinion. And speaking, even on interventions right now that we're around the holiday season or just got through the holiday season, we see applicants kind of spike a little more towards the end of the year, right around the holidays, because they're all having these conversations at their family holiday parties. People are really starting to kind of realize, oh, mom and dad and uncle and aunt, they kind of came at me and opened up my eyes a little bit, right? Which can work, and at other times, I'm sure it can't work either, right? I'm stubborn, I'll admit it. So sometimes as a stubborn guy, right, like, um, having someone tell me what to do doesn't usually go over well. It's not that I don't believe them, but it's just like the stubbornness in us is telling us, oh, well, someone else told me to do that, so don't do that. And so for these guys to, to actually understand and go through, if they go through an intervention and be humble enough and vulnerable enough to realize that and understand their family's output for sure. But yeah, I would say, kind of circling back on that, we see a little more of a spike towards this holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, especially New Year when deductibles reset too, right? It's another reason they kind of spike here is the interventions that families have around the holiday season for sure. But yeah, so I mean, I guess I can't really say if they work or not because I'm definitely not an expert in that field by any means. So I'm
Yeah,
not really sure for sure.
I think they're. I mean, without being an expert too, like, they're important. I mean, you
Hmm.
need to have those conversations, and then I just see that there's also the intervention that needs to happen sometimes with the parents, right? Or
Uh huh.
because a lot of times the parents might be in denial or not. Maybe they it's your child, so you might know, okay, something's a little off. There's something going on here, and then you start connecting the dots. But then there's that whole like denial and not wanting to accept this kind of reality thing, or hoping it's gonna, kind of phase out and course correct too. So like that's why I was reading that statistics. I'm like, okay, potential opportunities. So, you know, it, the amount of people that really didn't have the opportunity, maybe because of what, was it just not, the parent or the environment around them
Hmm.
wasn't conducive, enough to offer that intervention. But I just think that, yeah, having those conversations is never easy, even for the person who's
Oh,
not
never.
not addicted. But it's just you got to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Do you know?
I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just wondering, do you know what the definition of intervention is on that? Because, I mean, I'm just thinking about in terms of law enforcement wise, like arresting someone could count as an intervention, maybe, or committing
Right.
them because they're suicidal or whatever. Like that might count as an intervention. I don't know.
Mm.
But I'd just be curious to know what those statistics were because I'm sure there's a pretty high percentage of actually, I know that a high percentage of people that I've dealt with that have died or overdosed, like they're definitely known and known
Hmm.
entities to law enforcement. So
Right.
I'd be curious
Yeah.
what
Law
the
enforcement, they
statistics would
definitely
be on
have
that.
like, your repeat offenders that you're going to call back out to John Street again. You know where you're going. You know whose house it is. You know what you're going to do. There's it's especially in the law enforcement world. I mean, you see that all the time. But I mean, Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know.
How many
Yes.
facilities are you guys working with right now?
Ooh, I would say probably 10 to 15 ish. Right now, we're kind of all throughout Michigan. We have a few here locally in kind of the Oakland Macomb County area that we work with. We go all the way out to Grand Rapids. We have a few. Yeah, I would say probably about 10 to 15 right now and hoping to grow.
Okay. And then I know that at the gala I went to, Sheriff Bouchard spoke. Are you guys partnering up with law enforcement besides, in that capacity where he just speaks at events, or do you guys have any other kind of partnerships?
We partner, so Families Against Narcotics, they have a really good program called Hopes Not Handcuffs. Um, and they actually are very good about partnering with the police departments.
Yeah,
And,
I've dealt with them.
you know, yeah, I'm sure you've probably worked with them before too. And so, us, no, we don't necessarily get directly involved with them because, again, right, for someone that's a law enforcement officer, it's really hard for them to just say, hey, they just went to this call, and for them to be like, to, again, it goes back to the whole point of that person wanting the help. There's the idea in my head of having law enforcement have a handout or something, right, that they carry in their patrol car when they go to an overdose call or something to say, hey, here's an organization that can help financially. I'll probably get swamped, with applicants, and then I'll run out of money, right? So that's where we've learned over the years of going and partnering with the rehab so that they're actually knowing that somebody approached them and is actually willing to get help. But yeah, Families Against Narcotics, they have that Hope Not Handcuffs. When I worked for Sheriff Bouchard, we had the Rides for Recovery, right, where you could call and you could get a ride to a treatment center. You're not going to get arrested. And that's part of, I think, some of the biggest change that we have to do is, and we have done, I know, law enforcement has done it too, is a little more compassion with these individuals and, understanding, hey, drugs maybe necessarily aren't, a huge thing we need to be arresting people for. We don't need to be filling our jails with people that have overdosed. They didn't necessarily commit a crime. They need the treatment centers, and I think, and I know, I guess, from my time at the sheriff's office and just my time in Alex Saint's foundation, the strides that law enforcement has made to be a better resource to these individuals has been a dramatic change, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I know Oakland County Sheriff's Office, I was talking to a deputy. Actually, Lauren and I went to this country concert at what's it called, Pine Knob, and
Yeah.
we randomly got a ride from this deputy up there because the line was super long. And she was telling us she was just working OT, obviously, but
Yeah.
she was on this. She just got put on this unit where they go follow up on ODs and like
Mm-hmm.
go and offer resources or whatever. Like, I think it was I think it was like the next day or so. It's not when they're like still at the hospital if they got committed, or usually you just Narcan them and they go
Yeah.
back home or whatever. But yeah,
Right.
it's like some
Exactly.
unit. It's a couple of them where they go. They're not in uniform or anything. They just go in
Mm-hmm.
like polos and whatever
Right.
and
Yeah. A
go
little more
follow up.
humanized, the badge type of thing, type deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know the
It's
sheriff's
it's
office is doing that kind of stuff, which I think is good.
yeah.
Just
It's
my
definitely
personal opinion, but
it's. I mean, yeah. I don't think someone overdosing needs to go to jail. They need to go to treatment, and a lot of before years ago, right? That's what was happening. Is hey, drugs, jail. And so now that law enforcement's putting a better approach on it has been a life changing thing for these individuals for sure. Like, I think Families Against Narcotics says it best: hope, not handcuffs.
yeah. Yeah, I always tell this story when this kind of stuff comes up. This was in Virginia, but I had this guy, he had a warrant or something. It wasn't anything serious, but it was his 60th birthday, and I always like to talk to people when, I'm arresting them for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he had just like he was a crackhead, obviously, and he had a user amount on him. We just kicked it, whatever. but I had to take him on the warrant for whatever reason.
Right.
And it was his 60th birthday. And he told me that he'd been addicted I think he had heroin, but he'd been addicted since he was 9. So for 51
Jeez.
years, he'd been addicted. He was an 18-time convicted felon. And it was all just like robbery stuff. Like it was nonviolent stuff. It was like stealing and whatever back when
Yeah.
you would get felonies
Larceny.
for stealing
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
So back when you get felonies for stealing stuff, he racked up a whole bunch of them. And so, yeah, he'd been addicted for 51 years. So, I mean, what is a guy that's that old going to do? Like, he's not going to
Yeah,
actually get
that's his
clean. Like, he's
life.
been addicted
Right.
for way too long. Yeah. He doesn't know anything different.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was in the project. So he's getting all the subsidized housing and whatever.
Yeah.
And he knows nothing besides living in the system and doing drugs.
Yeah.
So it's just, people have the opinion of arresting their way out of that, but that kind of guy, that's not going to work for, you know, I mean, what will work? You don't know. He's probably dead by now.
Yeah.
That was in
Right.
2020, but yeah, it's just interesting. You know, some people live a very different life than what you or I could ever imagine living. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. But what events are you guys currently doing to raise money?
So we do a golf outing every year, which is our biggest fundraiser. So we've got that one planned again at Twin Lakes Golf Club in Oakland. That'll be on September 22nd. It's a Sunday. And then we're also currently trying to put together a fundraiser here for the springtime. Thinking probably a bowling fundraiser, possibly a 5K, possibly both. That's kind of what we're in the preliminary stages of planning right now. Is we just like to kind of change it up, bring in different crowds, do different things, make it enjoyable and also a learning experience at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you guys did like a cornhole event. I think
We did a cornhole tournament. Yeah, I did a cornhole tournament last year. So yeah, just like little things, just trying to things for people to go out and do, and also raise some awareness and raise some money at the same time.
For sure. And what are your kind of goals for it? Going into 2024, and maybe like a 1-year goal, a 5-year goal, stuff like that.
Yeah,
what's your vision?
Say, my vision now is, now that we've kind of got our footsteps and we really have a good understanding of who we are and how we operate, is more money. So funding is probably our biggest hiccup. Is, like I said before, an average month of rehab without insurance is like $10,000 to $12,000 a month. So money is probably the biggest thing, and we've gone ahead and gone through an audit to make sure our finances are credentialed and everything's good, everything checks out. So we got through that, we passed our audit. So now we can go after some bigger foundations and some bigger corporations that offer grants and things of that nature. More of the tens of thousands of dollar grants is kind of what we're going to start going after. So because like we said earlier, we've spent over $100,000 in treatment costs and scholarships, and I believe about 98,000 of that was in 2023 alone. So it's going out for sure, and where we got to work on getting some more back in, and so that's where we've kind of positioned ourselves, is to go after some bigger grants, bring in some more funding, and save some more lives.
What are your goals in terms of numbers of scholarships granted, or whatever your metrics are?
Yeah, so typically, when we started, we kind of had a goal of a person a month is what we thought would be a good goal, is to help. Hey, let's help at least one person a month, and I would say probably more than half of those, of that like 40 number that we've helped, it was, again, in 2023 alone. 2023 was an absolute insane year for us, the biggest we've ever had. Going out wise, I should say, not the biggest we've had coming in. So I would say, yeah, we typically, now that we're growing, if we can help 25 people a year, that's a crazy good to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome for sure. And then this one, we'll see how political you want to get with this. But again, the one event that I've been to was the gala, and Sheriff Bouchard, who is an elected official, was talking about how, the legislation needs to change in terms of treatment and like,
Mm-hmm.
I think he was talking about committing, like getting people committed or whatever. He was talking about some legislation stuff about something related to people overdosing. And so what are you seeing in terms of the political landscape for treatment and getting people help? And is that a roadblock that you guys are having to navigate?
At times, yeah. I mean, it can get political. I think some of the biggest things, right, would be when it comes down to healthcare is kind of where the most political it can get in the Medicaid, the Medicare, things of those nature, because it really goes by state, as we know, politically, right? And I was talking about the call we had earlier where this guy was he came from Texas, now lives in Michigan. And so we were just talking about the differences in Texas versus Michigan. And in Michigan, you're better off with Medicaid, Medicare for treatment than you are private insurance. Versus Texas, you're better off with your private insurance than you are Medicaid. Um,
Hmm.
the insurance world is something I kind of understand, don't fully understand, not sure I ever will understand. Um, and another thing that I believe is being done, and this has been some of my biggest issues, is you go get surgery at a hospital and then you're getting prescribed Vicodin or hydrocodone right after you're done with surgery. I remember this is probably like one of my first recollections where I really started to kind of see how disgusting this world is in high school. I was a senior in high school, got my wisdom teeth out, just like pretty much every other person in this world. I was given 30 Vicodin pills after my surgery. I took half of one, half of one. So why in the world are we prescribing 30 pills to people that just got wisdom teeth? Prescribe me 3, right? If I go through them, make me come back to an appointment, do your medical assessment on me, tell me if I need more pain pills, or am I just trying, to do this to try to get more pain pills for my own high, right?
You're
And
about to
there's a
get
thing
Mike
called
riled up.
yeah, there's this thing called MAPS. I forget exactly what it stands for, but I know a lot of doctors' offices are starting to get involved in it if they haven't been already over the years. And it's kind of more of like a centralized prescription database. And basically, it prevents people from doctor shopping, which has been an issue, right? Is I'm going to go to Dr. W over here and I'm going to get my Vicodin, but then I'm going to go hop over to Dr. R over here and get some more pills from him, and I'm going to go get this prescription filled here. I'm going to get this prescription filled here. Um, so that is something that I've loved to see that has changed over the years. I know has at least made a little bit better of a difference. Is that, but yeah, I mean, politically, there's, I mean, you can get into the border issues. You can get into where the drugs are coming from. You can get in. So it could go on forever. I mean, I don't know. You could start somewhere, and we could probably talk forever on it. You could get into the doctors that are prescribing people that aren't legitimate doctors. I mean, it's a nasty world for sure.
You didn't take my bait.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely, I mean, just in my experience, there's definitely a lot of people that start down the drug, the drug addiction path that have started by getting prescribed medication from actual doctors, whether it's a car accident or whatever. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, here's some fentanyl, no problem. We'll just
and to your point, like even if
here we go,
it's like it's
Mike.
Then your point of like why 30, right? It's like you got some teeth. Even getting one, not even a wisdom tooth, a tooth, just the regular tooth pulled. I mean, they're going to give you something stronger than Tylenol 3.
Yeah.
Now things are changing because you know what forces at least some change is lawsuits, right? So then you get,
Mm-hmm.
the pharmacies are getting sued, right? So
Oh, there's the whole thing going on right now
yeah,
with the Purdue Pharma and
yeah,
all that
and
jazz. Yeah.
then so they make all this profit, and then they pay some sort of fine, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
have like the Sackler family, who's like the head of
Mm-hmm.
the whole. But then they pay these fines, but they've already made all
They've
kinds
made
of money, right?
hundreds of
Yeah,
billions of
yeah,
dollars.
and even on like, I don't think it's a light level. Some people are gonna say, it's no big deal, but even from an Adderall standpoint, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you could be 40 years old and just go into a doctor and say, "Hey, I'm having trouble concentrating." Give them some kind of, and then they're going to give you a prescription for Adderall, right? And then it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, but instead of saying, "Well, you got through your whole life without needing it," like, let's have this conversation. Let's see what else needs to change, or
Right. What,
what's going
how's
on.
your
And
diet? How are you active? Are you working
right,
out? Like, yeah, all these other things
and
instead
it's
of
not, maybe,
pushing pills.
and maybe it does benefit some people,
For sure.
but
Yeah,
at the
I won't
same
argue that.
time, as I know a lot of people that take it that don't need to take it, and it's just more
Hmm.
used to like power through than it is
Yeah.
to anything else. And then it's like, well, that's not creating a good habit. It's
Yeah.
like, so
I can honestly say I've never once taken an Adderall pill, and I feel like I probably need it. I feel my comprehension, I can't sit down for very long, I probably need it, but I've never taken it. I don't think I ever want to take it
no,
because then it's just going to start, the snowball effect. And
it's meth.
yeah,
I mean, it's
literally, it's
methamphetamine.
what it
It's like,
is. Yeah.
but yeah. So I
Um,
think the to the profit, the money factor, and
that's
then
at the end of the day, that's what it is, right?
it
When I,
factors into it.
yeah, they sold me 30 Vicodin pills, and guess what? They made their money on it for sure. I had appendicitis, right? I got prescribed, I think, if I remember correctly, it was like 15 hydrocodone or something at the time. And it's like, guys, like, you can't just be giving this access out there, right? And there's a ton of good programs out there. And I know through the sheriff's office, Operation Medicine Cabinet, they have locations all throughout Oakland County where they have these medicine cabinets, no questions asked. You go dump your pills in there, they're gone, right? So if you have, you know, always remember when I was working there, every time, daylight savings time was always a good reminder to clean out your medicine cabinet and go check all those old meds and get rid of them. Don't flush them down your toilet. Don't do that. Take them, dispose of them properly, safely, securely.
Yeah, pretty much any police station now
Yeah.
has a thing that you can dump your pills into. And yeah,
Yep.
there's no report or anything written. You
You
just
don't
go in
fill
there and
any paperwork out. You don't do
yeah,
anything. You dump them in there and you walk back out.
yeah, it's a pretty good resource for people for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to let the Locker Room Philosophers fans out there in the world know anything like closing thoughts about ASF, and then also kind of where people can learn more and how they can get involved?
Well,
Yeah.
actually, before that,
Oh, here.
can you let's talk about, for at least for a little bit here. Tell us about Alex.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit
Definitely.
about, yeah, just something at least,
Alex.
yeah, in your memory, something about
Yeah, we
Alex.
skipped that.
Yeah, man, Alex. He was a one of a kind, man. That guy, if he was in the room, I'm telling you what, the light was on, everybody was smiling, everybody was having a good time. He brought everyone together. That was his thing. I remember a few days before he passed, like I said, he passed before his 25th birthday. He was texting everybody. I mean, you name it. I'm pretty sure everyone I talked to after he passed was, he just reached out to me. He just wanted to have me come by first. He wanted to have a birthday party. He was getting everyone together. And so he, just like a heart of gold, but at the same time, the heart of a lion, and the fact of, don't screw with anybody that he loves or cares about. He stood up for people that he loved and cared about. He was the definition of a true guy's guy, like somebody that had your back and you knew it. And I know Hannah and myself, right? We were the three best friends that anybody could have. That was what we always said. Um, we did everything together. I met Alex in seventh grade. we were inseparable since that day. We loved chasing girls. We loved going to the gym. We loved cars. He loved music. He was a guitar player. Obviously, he loved, the EDM, all the electronic. He started DJing and all this stuff. He just kind of took life by the horns and just did whatever made him happy. And to me, it's just kind of the way I look at things now is to live life. And like Alex said, to stop caring so much and go have fun and go live your life and just be approachable. The kid he was incredible. It's like I said, the brother from another mother. That was Alex, and I could go on and on forever about him. Just his drive was admirable. He would set his mind to something and he would go get it. And he wouldn't quit until he did get it. Just his drive I think is something that we all kind of carry on today. And he had this Bible verse, Mark 9:23, tattooed on his back shoulder, which was everything is possible for him who believes. And that is something that I carry on today, because if you believe you can do it, man, you can do it. It might be a huge goal, but what is stopping you? Go get it. If you believe you can do it, then guess what? You can do it. So yeah, that was Alex, man. Just loved music, loved working out, loved working, loved making money, just loved being active, loved being outdoors at times. I remember one time he thought it was a great idea to invite a couple girls up to my lake house and thought it'd be awesome. Hey, dude, let's pitch a tent in the backyard and it'll be great. Don't worry, it's waterproof, dude. Guess what? It wasn't waterproof. Found that out in the middle of the night when I'm getting poured on in the middle of the night. So I ran inside. I was like, yeah, I'll be on the couch. He just wasn't afraid to say no. And I think that's something that I can learn from him too, and still am trying to learn on how to just not say no, and also at the same time say no at certain things. So yeah, no, Alex
For sure.
he's the best. He's the best, man. He's the best for
Beautiful.
sure.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me.
Besides ASF and obviously the impact that has had on your life, how has Alex's passing changed your life plans? I don't know if you even thought about that, but
Oof. I don't know if I would say you necessarily changed. I mean, there's certain things that have changed, right? Like we always said, we would be each other's best mans in the wedding and things like in our weddings and, things like that. When we were younger, we were going to have a house together. We were going to be, we'd have so many girls over at the house or our apartment and yeah, just things like that. But I would say, just trying, just realizing how fragile life is I think something that I've learned for sure, and just being better about showing up, for family and friends. And it might not mean a lot to you, but it's gonna, showing up might mean a ton for that person there. They might be going through something that you have no idea, and all they need is for someone to show up. Just yeah, trying to have that heart of bringing a lot of people in and having being the center, not the center of attention, but the center of the party that gathers everyone and things of that nature. Just trying, I would say, to live a little more like Alex in a way. I would say is kind of what I've learned, and I think they said the biggest thing: anything is possible if you believe. So I've kind of took that and ran with it.
for sure. How has your relationship with his family changed?
I would say it's I've gotten even closer with his family. I definitely talk with his, siblings as much as I can. Rachel, his little sister, just got engaged at New Year's Eve. His little brother got engaged probably a year ago, if that. So I would say it definitely has brought us closer. They've always accepted me as like another one of their sons, and John, and every time I call him, answers the phone. Hey, son. Every time I see him, hey, son, he acknowledges me as son. And it's to me, that's my second dad. And Sue, his mom, always, always, always loved me so much, when we were younger and hanging out. And so just, being there for them and just kind of letting them know that I'm not going anywhere, kind of stuck with me now. So it's just, it's not like a void, that I'm trying to fill, because I obviously will never fill those shoes. But, especially for Nick and Rachel, his younger sister and brother, um, just to be, I'll never be Alex to them, but, to be that older brother per se, that they can come to is, something that I take pride in, and that I love Nick and Rachel like they're my own siblings. I consider them my own siblings. So it's definitely brought us closer for sure. And I mean, that's a family that I'll love and cherish and carry with me forever.
For sure. That's awesome. Mike, did you have anything else?
No, well, thank you for you bringing awareness what you're doing, the foundation. I think it's extremely important. It's something that, like we discussed, is an issue among. It doesn't discriminate based on age, race,
Yeah, I
anything
don't
like
care
that,
what you
right?
look like.
And
Yeah, I don't.
it'll take you away young. Like to the
Hmm.
point that one gentleman, Carlos, he said 9 years old. I mean, so more awareness, more resources for support, and just
Yeah,
people understanding that it's okay to talk about these things is
yeah.
important. So yeah, thank you for
It's okay if you're struggling, man. I
yeah,
mean, we all struggle. We all go
absolutely,
through our struggles. It's okay. It's tough to know that things are better. It's tough to see that light. Um, but man, the guys and the gals that do and that can, and like I said, just be vulnerable. Like those guys are so motivating to me and keeping me going, right? Like it takes, so many balls to just man up and say, I need help. I need help. And to me, that's remarkable. So, the guys that we help, the girls that we help, they're the inspiration, and for sure.
absolutely.
That actually brings up another question I forgot to write down. Um, what do you see in the difference in between men and women that you help? Like, what's the percentages? Are men more difficult to work with? What's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, women are a little more open to sharing more, I would say. Men, especially, I would say maybe talking to another male can, sometimes not be intimidating, but it's just kind of like that guy thing. Like, I'm not weak, like um, the ego really is what it is. You definitely see more ego in males than you do in females for sure. We definitely probably help more males than females, I would say. But it's not like we discriminate, right? It's just a matter of who's applied. And a lot of the facilities that we work with will have a men's facility and women's facility, right? So they don't intertwine the two. And so yeah, we'll work with anybody, man. Like we said earlier, we don't care, and neither does the drugs. They don't care either, man. They'll go after you wherever.
That's very true. So, where can people find out more about both you and ASF? And then, how can people get involved?
Yeah, I would say follow us on Facebook or social media, at Alex's Saints Foundation. That's where we post a lot of our stuff, where a lot of our events. Our website will have all of our events on there, which is alexsaints.org. Um, and yeah, just come to events is probably the best way you can get involved. They're donating, following us on social media even goes a long way, right? If you can help us spread our message and help us raise awareness for this issue, then that's going to go a longer way than people imagine. So, yeah, tell your friends and your family, about us, and I promise you, probably everybody knows somebody. So we're here to help and use this as a resource.
And people can apply through your website, right?
Correct.
That's what
Yep.
I saw.
So there's
Okay.
a apply here tab on our website, and we just have an application if you're looking to get into rehab, and fill that out, and then we review it amongst our boards, and after we do our due diligence and our homework, and go from there.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. Thank you, Tyler, and Mike, of course, for emceeing us here. Yeah, thanks. And people are going to be tuning in for sure. So we appreciate you
Awesome.
coming on
Yeah.
here
No.
and
Thanks.
spreading the
Thanks
word.
for allowing me to come on here and talk about it and talk about Alex and spread our message and whatnot. It means a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Jenny, my mother-in-law, had been telling me to hit you up for a while now. And then I saw you share the stats on how much you guys had been putting out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there it is. I got to do this finally. So
that's awesome.
Figured
No,
it'd be a good
Jenny's the
time to hit
best,
you up.
man. There is not many hearts out there like Jenny Taylor's heart. I'll tell you that. If everybody in this world had a Jennifer Taylor heart, I'm telling you, we would get a ton done. There'd be a lot more happiness in this world. Yes, shout out Jenny Taylor for sure.
Sounds good. We appreciate it, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks, guys, man. I appreciate it as well. You guys rock. Keep up the good work too, man. Keep building it. It's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. See you.